Yo, what's good? My name's Kang, and in this video, I'm going to tell you how much I earned, spent, and invested in January of 2022. I made a video like this recently before for 2021, and I wanted to keep this going as a monthly check-in in order to keep myself accountable and also show some financial transparency. All right, so first things first, how much I earned in January. So in total, this month, I earned $730.88. I work as a software engineer in Seattle, and my take-home pay is $110,000. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Kang, this salary and this pay doesn't really make sense. Why is it so low? Now, I assure you there's a reason for that. If you watched my earlier 401k front-loading video, you would know that I'm planning to front-load my 401k in order to take advantage of that employer match as soon as possible. So after you take in consideration my 401k contributions, my healthcare deductions, my taxes, and my employee stock purchasing plan, I take home about $350 every half month or so. And if you're interested in a full salary breakdown, make sure to subscribe because I'm definitely going to be talking about this in a later video. If you're wondering how I was able to front load my 401k so aggressively, it was because I set aside money from last year in order to front load this year. And if you watched this channel before, welcome back. You'll notice that this is not my normal setup. That's because I went home for the holidays and decided to stay a little bit longer for two reasons. Number one, my work is still remote, so there's no reason for me to really be in Seattle. And number two, I got COVID, but that's a story for another day. So by having low expenses this month and by having some money saved over from last year, I was able to aggressively contribute to my 401k up to the amount of 65% of my paycheck. And now, of course, this is not sustainable, but since I was at home and my expenses were relatively low, I was able to aggressively front load. Like I said earlier, I'm chilling at home for this month and literally chilling because it's super cold outside. But even when I'm not there, I still gotta pay the rent and the bills to keep the lights on in Seattle. So in total, I spent $1,853 USD this month. So my biggest expense by far is my rent, which makes sense. And that's $1,670 for the rent and the utilities. Now this month, I'm not including electricity because they usually bill me, every 2 months, every 3 months, but it's usually around $30 to $40. The other bills that I have is my phone bill, which is $37, and then my internet bill, which is another $50. I also had to pay for physical therapy and doctor's visits from last year, and I have to pay $35 for long-term care insurance in Washington. Now, I normally wouldn't pay for long-term care insurance, but Washington is passing a new tax law that will deduct the amount automatically from your paycheck. So it ended up being cheaper for me to get my own insurance rather than it getting deducted from my taxes. But on the other hand, I definitely did spend some Canadian money since I've been home, and we're gonna go over that right now. So let's quickly get the boring stuff out of the way. I spent around $74 on groceries, which, really quick aside, groceries are getting really expensive. I don't know if that's just me. Another $12.50 on transportation, which is just a train ticket. For takeout, I spent around $31 this month. And if you're not from Canada, you probably don't know, but Ontario is in its fourth lockdown due to COVID. This means no gyms, no restaurants, no haircuts, and basically you just gotta stay home and be kind of sad. Which means my takeout bill is pretty low. But that kind of ties into my next category of how much I spent on alcohol this month, which is $54, because if I can't have a nice glass of wine after a day of work, what else do I really have? Okay, so that covers all the boring expenses, but now let's go over how much I spent on fun stuff. My biggest purchase this month was a new phone. I just got this used iPhone 10 for around $200, and I think it's a pretty good deal. The reason that I got this phone was to trade in with my carrier once I got back to the States for either the iPhone 13 or the Samsung S21 Ultra. I'm not really sure which one yet though. Now I do have to lock myself in for 3 years with that plan, but considering how good the plans in the States are and how good phones are getting, I don't really see the need to upgrade in the next 1, 2, or even maybe 3 years. Now I just want to say that I probably wouldn't do this if I didn't get such a good corporate discount, but aside from that, that's why I bought this phone. The next interesting purchase is my Nexus card. So if you don't know, Nexus is a pass that allows you to go through customs in Canada and the US a lot faster. And since I travel home and back to the States pretty often, it seemed like a good deal for me. I also still have my Canadian Amex Gold card, which covers $50 in statement credits when I purchased the Nexus card. So after taxes and currency conversion, the total fee for me was around $15, which I think is a pretty good deal. This is great because not only does Nexus make it faster when you go through customs, it also gives you TSA pre-check, which basically means you get a shorter line and you don't have to take off your shoes. Currently, the interview sites for Nexus are closed, but hopefully as COVID gets better, they'll open up and I'll be able to get my card. And the last interesting purchase was my own domain name for $20. I'm going to be starting a personal finance blog this year, which more or less covers the same thing that I'm talking about on YouTube, but also some additional content that I don't really think would work well on the YouTube format. If the blog is something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe because I'm going to be talking about it in more detail later. And finally, I spent like $10 on a gift. That basically wraps up my spending. So in total, I spent $1,800 in the US and another $540 in Canada. All right. Up next, we have how much I invested in January. Like I said earlier, 65% of my gross paycheck goes towards my 401k. This ends up being around $3,000 every paycheck, or around $6,000 a month. Since my company matches 50%, I'm also getting another $3,000 on top of that, bringing my total 401k contribution up up to $9,000. With my 401k, I'm invested 90% into an S&P 500 mutual fund and another 10% into an emerging markets mutual fund. Now, I know mutual funds usually get a pretty bad rap, but these ones in particular are pretty good. They're through Fidelity and they have very low fees. I also contribute $690 each paycheck to my employee stock purchasing plan because it's such a great deal. Make sure to subscribe because I'm going to be making a whole entire video just on the employee stock purchasing plan in the future. Next, we have crypto. I've been dollar cost averaging $50 into both Bitcoin and Ethereum weekly, which brings the total to $200 a month for each of them. I don't know if you follow the crypto market at all, but both Bitcoin and Ethereum are starting to take a little bit of a tumble. So on top of those weekly contributions, I've been trying to buy the dip which keeps dipping, which is another $1,400 towards Bitcoin and another $500 towards Ethereum. On top of that, I also did my crypto gamble of 2022 where I spent $1,450 across the top 10 coins in the market. I also started to dabble with NFTs. And don't get me wrong, I know that NFTs are essentially gambling and really it's just a big rug pull Ponzi scheme waiting for the loser to hold the bag. But on the flip side, there is money to be made there and my brother's been making a lot of money flipping NFTs. So I decided to give him 0.2 ETH just to see if he can get me to some whitelist. So we'll see how that goes. Again, this is not financial advice because definitely don't do this, it's a bad idea. And that basically wraps up my investments for this month. In total, I invested $10,400 in the stock market and another $4,300 into the crypto market, which brings my total invested to $14,700 this month. This is definitely a lot of money, but next month and all the months afterwards are not going to be as high. Like I said earlier, I'm contributing 65% of my gross paycheck, which is not sustainable in the slightest. So once my contribution percentages go down, my total invested each month will be a lot lower. On top of that, I put some pretty big investments into crypto this month, and I don't think it's going to be as high going forward. However, as the Bitcoin and Ethereum market keeps on dipping, I'm thinking of upping my weekly contributions to maybe $75 or $100 for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Right now, the stock market and the crypto market are both down. The stock market is taking a little bit of tumble, while the crypto market is practicing how to reach terminal velocity. Either way, markets are down and who knows where they're gonna go. I'm investing for the long term and I fully believe that time in the market is better than timing the market. I think a lot of the advice online right now is just to wait before buying because you don't know whether or not the market's gonna go up or if it's gonna go down. But I'm 23 years old and I don't plan to use money anytime soon. So I'm thinking in terms of decades rather than months or years. So with that in mind, I don't care whether the market's going to be in 1 month, 5 months, or even a year. I'm more concerned about how long my money has been able to compound when I pull it out 10, 20 years from now. That's why I'm front loading my 401k even if markets are looking red. Now, if you like this video, please let me know down in the comments or by hitting the like button. I really like this format because it lets me be accountable and also transparent, which I think there's a lack of in the personal finance community. And if you're wondering about how I was able to track any of this information, you can watch this video right here where I go over my budgeting spreadsheet and template.